Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Beyer from GAI Insights, and this is our last workday for 2023. What a year it's been. Our daily call here is an executive briefing where we discuss and rate top news items related to enterprise GenAI. Our team of AI analysts rate each article as essential, important, or optional for the time-starved executives and AI leaders at companies. Today's briefing is sponsored by GAI Insights, and the discussion will be led by Tim.
Good morning and welcome to the last business day of the year, everybody. Ankaj, please bring up the first article.
Sure, I'm just sharing my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so the first news update that we have for today is from Insilico Medicine. So they have developed a new AI-generated inhibitor for tissue-agnostic solid tumors.
So I have a big interest, as most people know, in this area. This is, I think, essential if you're in the life sciences industry, but optional otherwise. It's a very interesting platform called, what's it called? Chemistry 42 that Insilico has developed over the last year or so. And it's a generative AI where the language is amino acids and DNA ribonucleic acids. And so the idea is that when you have disease, you can literally generate millions and millions of potential protein inhibitors, or agonists as they call them, the opposite of inhibitors, to help with various therapeutics. And this one is targeted at solid tumors and a particular pathway of the solid tumors. And so this is very interesting if you're in the life sciences industry, and the use of large language models on something other than what we normally think of as language, like English or French or Farsi or whatever. But if you're not in the life sciences industry, this is optional, in my opinion.
Tim, are you or others, what is any updates on the patentability protection for discoveries that are, quote, created or discovered by AI, which is not humans? My understanding currently that that's not protected in the current IP patent law. In case
no, I don't. Actually, I disagree. I think that the AI cannot own the patent is the only rule, and that was in the UK. It's only been one. None of this has been truly settled, I suppose, in law. So there may be some issues, but machine learning and various other computer-based, if you will, techniques have been used for decades to generate ideas, chemistry structures, simulations that are used in life sciences to create chemical targets and to create drugs. And those are all patented and successful. So I don't think this will have much impact on the patentability of the resulting drug. And 99 times out of 100, there's still going to be work to be done. Well, we'll see, and maybe it'll go further faster than we think. But the real change here is that you can go through the large space of potential molecules so much faster, rather than just looking at existing molecules in test tubes of various types to see what they do. You can dream, if you will, molecules in silicon and see what they do. And the ability of generative AI is to dream up those molecules in a hurry in reasonable patterns, because the possible combinations are so large that if you just randomly start putting molecules together, you won't get much.
And I think, Michael, thank you for the comments online. I think I'm misreading this. So this is a diagnostic tool and not a new drug.
It is a diagnostic tool in some sense, but it's also targeting, inhibiting these various growth factors that cause solid tumor growth. So it's both, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, drug discovery is always a combination of what works, how it works, and what you should try, right? I'd argue this is essential. I mean, the fact that these platforms are getting created, to me, this rhymes with, we're going to talk about later, with the Bain thing, which is certain market leaders are going to go out and build these new knowledge bases that are going to tremendously change productivity. And every industry should understand, they may not be dealing with molecules, but there's something like this in pretty much every industry, certainly every knowledge-intensive industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a general
Oh,
pattern.
yeah.
Yeah, John, I would agree with your essential. I mean, I think while this is life sciences specific, I'm sure the CEO and executive teams this is flying across their radar screen.
And back to a point you often make, Paul, who's going to attract the best talent? Somebody coming out, if I'm, if I'm in silico medicine, man, I want the, biologist, PhD biologist, computer science, double major coming to work for me, right? Everybody wants that person. Who are they going to go to? They're going to go here.
Yep. Computational biologists.
Yep.
Adam, you have any thoughts?
I'd say it's important. I wouldn't go essential, but I guess I'm thinking at the broader demographic of any busy executive who could be wanting to stay across the AI news. I certainly wouldn't object if you make it essential, though.
Okay, essential then. I think we have enough votes for it. Next.
The next one is from robotics. So the combination of AI and robotics is developing really fast. So this sort of thread gives us details of 17 real-life humanoid robot demos.
Yeah, I argue essential for this thing. I mean, what's cool is the variety of different kinds of robots we were talking about before. One in particular, there's a robot in this set of examples. It's a very flat robot, goes underneath cars and then can pick them up easily and park them someplace else. And you could with a few of those robots, you could radically improve just taking something as low tech as a parking garage. You could radically improve the productivity of a parking garage by just having these robots stack cars right next to each other. It's just anyway, it's amazing.
Yep, I agree. And a whole new platform. And the interesting thing is it's
just a sec, Tim. Ankash, can you scroll down the page as we're continuing to discuss it so we can see some of the others? Because there are 17 like visuals there across the industries yet.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is how many there are, both as you said, John, and the variety of them, and also how many similar ones are being developed using basically the same approach. So that's an indication that we're really going to start to see prices drop and features expand because they've reached that tipping point where you can build them for reasonable costs and startups can start to get after them. And you also start to see splinter efforts at completely different approaches. Like you said, the very vertically oriented, I can park your car super cheap and I don't have to open the doors and I have all sorts of advantages. And the other one was the pendulum robot that's basically got 2 wheels and 2 arms and never loses its balance and is very compact and pretty lightweight and can get into a lot of small spaces. So
Ankash, scroll back up about halfway. Tim, I would say that because I saw that when it came out and was sharing it quite a bit. Keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. It's a couple more. It's just before the dogs there. It's the one just before those.
Right there. Keep going.
That one. It's out of this German company. And the thing is, this design can be scaled just by the size of it to applications either at the macro or almost the micro. And it's really incredible the way it uses its own center of mass and the center of mass of the object as a cantilever, while also and it can move very quickly. It can pull it down to like its wheelbase. It's super innovative and super simple, and it's hard to even imagine 6 months from now with AI autonomous robotics where we're going to be. This is a great summary news article for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people don't talk about enough. They keep talking about the applications and so forth. The whole architecture of robotics and computing and cell phones and media is going up in the air. I mean, that's where it's going to be just mind-blowing.
Yep. And, we always start again by recapitulating what we already know. So the robots that excite everybody are the the dogs and the dancing robots and the Tesla humanoid robot, and there's a couple more humanoid robots, and they may be quite valuable. But this is an indication to me that we're starting to be inspired by human form, but not captured by it. And so
or limited by it, yeah.
Right, limited by it. And so you start to get the new ideas that really take advantage of the technologies we have. Yep.
Well, and I think the only other thing I would ask, and I think hopefully this is bringing it down beyond the unbelievable Amazon warehouse automation, which has got hundreds of those, very specialized robots as well.
Yep. Okay.
So
Essential. Next.
Okay. The next one is from NVIDIA. So they are releasing a special chip for China to subvert US export controls.
Paul, John, you have thoughts about this one?
I mean, I would say it's optional. I assume that competitive markets and intelligence, the ability to hold back this technology and the spread of it is going to be, maybe you get a few years lead and so forth. It's really about building a capability and build that next group. So I think it's optional.
shouldn't executive be fired if they aren't figuring out how to circumvent export controls?
Yes, right. And that's always the issue with these things is people will figure out how to get around the constraints one way or another. And NVIDIA in particular, because I believe China is a huge market for them. So they're going to spare no expense to figure out how to work this out. Optional. Adam, you okay with that? Okay, next.
Okay, next is
Adam's in
from
Australia, so
Company.
he's going to get the first. Sorry. Adam's in Australia, so he's going to get the first wave of what the Chinese do with this stuff. Yeah. I'm sorry, Nakash. I talked over you.
No
Sorry.
worries, John. Okay. So the next one is from Bain & Company. So they have launched multiple tools across their firm using GPT-4 and some other OpenAI models, and one of the tool is named Sage, that is being used to synthesize information across Bain & Company.
Not just because I'm an old consultant, my God, I think this is essential. I mean, first of all, anybody who buys consulting services has to ask, okay, where are your robots? Second thing is, if you look at them, you look at PwC, you look at what McKinsey just came out with this report where they said, 20% of all the net income is coming from generative AI efforts, according to, which I don't believe, by the way, but that's another. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a proof of the WINS framework. Our WINS framework. I mean, Bain is a WINS-intensive digital company, and here they are. They're reconfiguring their core, and this has got to sell to the organizations too. It's like the old hair club for men, for those of us old enough to remember that ad. Bain's not only doing the stuff, selling the stuff to you, they're using it inside. And so I think this is essential.
I could argue against essential just because I like the idea and I can be talked into essential because the breadth of use here and the number of use cases is quite interesting. And because, as you said, this is one of the in the crucible in terms of the WINS frameworks types of companies where they're radically restructuring the way they do various kinds of tasks. It's been in place for a while, and there's nothing totally shocking here. It's just better integration of knowledge, which is hugely important in a consulting industry. One of the biggest challenges, as you and I both know, has always been, well, somebody knows the answer to this question somewhere, and we've probably done 3 studies of it already, but I can't find them, so I'm going to do it all over again. So that ability is enormous and very valuable. But I could argue that it's important versus essential because McKinsey, everybody's got one of these now already, so it's not that groundbreaking at that level. You have a thought here, Paul or Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I fly at the important level. I think what's impressive about this is that this is a company that's selling GenAI services, at least walking the talk. I don't want to use names, but we know 2 other companies that are selling GenAI services and products and are barely doing anything. Wait a minute, those balloons are coming in, and barely doing anything internally here. So, I think from folks we know over there and this, I think they really are walking the talk and trying to be AI native, and likely are perhaps not ahead of McKinsey or close to where McKinsey are, but perhaps way ahead of Deloitte and E&Y and PwC and others.
Yeah, not sure on those other, because those firms spend tons of dough. I think the challenge for the big four is their conflict issues, because what regulation looks like on top of this in terms of what they can do and use and recommend.
Yeah.
Can they use it at an audit client? If they're, let's say they're building it for their consulting practice, can they use it at their audit client? Well, if it starts to get into advising things that have to do with the revenue cycle, the answer is maybe probably not. I think they're deep in the technology. They just have a hard time deploying it. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say probably important. The only reason I would consider essential is when you combine it with the news we have later about Coca-Cola. And I did catch in that article that they're using Bain frameworks as part of their rollout, which just gives a little more meat to the story in terms of what's coming to market today in terms of news, that might push it for me into something that people really do want to be paying close attention to.
Yep, I'm convinced. Let's make it essential. Anybody have heartburn over essential? I think it's important enough. To John's point earlier, there's something like this in every industry that is going to restructure entirely what you do. And this is a pretty good example of top to bottom rethinking. We'll see how it comes out, but they're pushing. Okay,
well,
next.
Tim, it's great. If a whole month we haven't had that much essential articles, and we're ending the month.
Like Ford and
Yeah.
All right. You never know how it's going to come out. Ankaj, next article, please.
Yeah. The next one is from GigaML. So they want to help companies deploy LLMs offline.
Okay, really interesting. Definitely the big O for me. Startup company announcing.
Yeah, look, it's someone else using Llama 2. Let's move on. Yeah, I'd agree. Optional.
Interesting if you have time. Okay.
But before we move on, though, I want to introduce the Nothing Burger that finally came in Amazon. So we have a Nothing Burger as well.
Awesome, I love it.
But this isn't a Nothing Burger, right? Nothing Burger is reserved for big headlines that have no substance.
That's true. That's true.
Right. This is just an early announcement of yet another startup doing something.
This just gets you your optional, Paul.
Another Llama 2 deployment. So we'll see. It's early days. Okay. Optional. Ankaj, next, please.
Okay, the next one is from Coca-Cola. So this article sort of details out how Coca-Cola has been using generative AI for advertising and marketing in the last 8 to 10 months.
Yep. So I think there's a little bit of stretching here, because I think 3 of the 6 things are around their Real Magic platform. But nevertheless, I would argue this is essential given the size of Coca-Cola, its place in marketing and advertising, and the breadth of efforts across the board here.
As a guy who used to be a marketing prof, there's no way I could be teaching first-year marketing without having a module on this stuff. It'd just be essential.
Yep. I think, again, to see a major brand, we hear all the talk about, enterprises are worried about this stuff. They're worried about IP rights. They're worried about this. They're worried about that. Here is arguably, it's certainly in the top 5 brands of all time. Head deep in the water in this stuff, really pushing it. It's in marketing and advertising, which we've said is in the crucible and also quote unquote safer. But for a brand like Coke, nothing is that safe, right? If you make a big mistake on the brand front, it's going to hurt.
Well, and the other thing is that it's not like they're doing it with Minute Maid, grape juice. They're doing it with the core asset.
Right.
I mean, that is they have so many brands in that organization, and so many. I mean, they can do Fanta in Argentina if they wanted to, de-risk this, right? They're not. Yeah. They're doing Coke in the major markets.
Yeah,
it's huge.
And so for the busy AI executive, we say this is essential because you need to be paying attention here. This is a major brand doing really important production work, Also, again, I'm going to pound the table on this idea of engagement, that they created a platform to let their customers create AI images, as we just had a webinar on last week, right, with Liz in the group, from the guy who won the Real Magic contest at Coca-Cola. So not only are they using the tools, but they are making the tools available for engagement with their audience. It's a brilliant strategy.
I would add one other thing on the elephants can dance. I imagine this has energized the employee base in a way that's very transformative and similar to how Nadella has done it over at Microsoft. And if I'm a young creative person and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to work for Pepsi or Coke, John? We're not hearing about this innovation over at Pepsi. Maybe they're doing it, but it feels like, would you work for McDonald's and Coke or Wendy's and Pepsi as fast followers? So it's got an HR element to it.
Adam,
Absolutely.
you have thoughts here?
I'd say it's important. I don't know.
It's a great inflation warning, huh?
Well, you want to say more and argue us off our ecstatic essential platform?
Which half of the news that's in here, like you said, we actually just covered earlier this week, I think. It's like, I think the news is kind of out that Coca-Cola is leading sort of in market with AI, and they were also listed in the example with McDonald's the other night. Like, maybe I'm just a bit over so much. Like, it just feels like a little too much news for. It's a good summary. It's important, I'd say, but it just. Yeah, a lot of what we said, I think, is a roll up of what we've been talking about in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's interesting. Michael's asking, how could this thing go wrong? I think one of the ways this thing could go wrong would be if an enterprising attorney started to use some AI to say, hey, look, Coke has basically ripped off all these different people and these different brands. I mean, that would be a whole thing. I think if there was some story about disgruntled ad executives talking about how this thing they're riding roughshod over the thing that made Coke. I mean, there are a lot of ways that somebody who wanted to attack this could go at it, I think.
Yep. So, Paul, John, are you moved by
essential, David?
Yep.
Say it loud, say it proud. That's where I am.
I'll defer to the moderator in the spirit of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go for
I
it.
say essential, so we'll go with
Okay.
it.
I think
All right. So we go out with a bang. I'm ready.
Is that the last one on Kaj?
Yes, Tim.
Okay. Incredible year, everybody. Enjoy the New Year holiday, and we'll see you bright and early next year.
that's right.
Back to
Happy
you,
New
Paul.
Year. We're off on Monday, so we start again on Tuesday, the work day.
All righty.